This is CBS News Bay Area with Elizabeth Cook.
I'm Devin Fehley in for Liz. Now, tomorrow marks a new year, and we'll soon have a new presidential administration. It is partly deja vu with former President Donald Trump making a comeback, but this time there's a new team around him that includes a younger vice president and a tech mogul. Today, we're looking at the state of the political world as we head into 2025. And let's go and give you a brief recap of the busy year in politics, which ended with former president preparing to head back into the White House. At first, it seemed like a rematch was on tap. In June, sitting President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, they met on the debate stage. But even President Biden couldn't deny his disastrous performance that night. In July, a would-be assassin targeted Donald Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania. The shooter killed a volunteer firefighter, critically injured two rallygoers, and grazed Trump's ear. The gunman was shot and killed by Secret Service agents. Now, 2 days later, President Trump kicked off the Republican National Convention with VP pick J.D. Vance. Then pressure on the Biden administration reached a boiling point. The 81-year-old president, he bowed out of the race, and Vice President Kamala Harris became the first woman of color to secure a major party presidential nomination. She picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate, and she built new enthusiasm for that ticket heading into a spirited convention. But in November, Trump swept every single battleground state, and now he prepares for his second presidency come 2025. CBS reporter Erica Brown looks at his last order of business for 2024 and his plans to ring in the new year.
Mar-a-Lago will be packed with a who's who from Capitol Hill for President-elect Donald Trump's annual New Year's bash.
Happy New Year.
It's unclear whether House Speaker Mike Johnson will be in attendance. But Trump delivered a late Christmas gift to Johnson Monday when he endorsed him to be the Speaker of the House in the new Congress.
I'm really humbled and honored to have President Trump's endorsement for Speaker again.
But even with Trump's endorsement, Johnson may have a tough time winning enough votes from his Republican colleagues. At least 3 Republican House members say they have reservations about Johnson's leadership.
I remain undecided, as do a number of my colleagues, because we saw so many of the failures last year that we are concerned about that might limit or inhibit our ability to advance the president's agenda.
Kentucky's Thomas Massie went even further, posting to social media that he's a no vote for now. The Republican majority is so tight that Johnson can only afford to lose one GOP member and still get the majority of votes needed to become Speaker.
Right now, I don't believe that he has the votes on Friday, and I think we need to have the conference get together so that we can get united.
The House cannot vote on anything else until a Speaker is elected.
And when last Congress gavelled into session in 2023, it took 15 rounds of voting over 4 days for former Speaker Kevin McCarthy to win the gavel. President-elect Trump is going into the White House with Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. After the break, we'll ask one of our political experts what we can expect from the new Trump administration and explore President Biden's legacy as he exits the job. President-elect Trump won't be sworn in for another 3 weeks, but he's already facing some pushback. While some of his cabinet picks are trying to win over members of the Senate, Governor Gavin Newsom is warning Trump to be ready for multiple legal fights over policy. Now, this comes after a contentious and at times violent campaign. So will 2025 bring America together, or will the political battles continue? Joining me now is Nolan Higdon. He's a lecturer of media studies and history from UC Santa Cruz. Let's start with the incoming Trump administration. How much of the policies do you think will be sort of Trump 2.0, a continuation of the things that he tried to do during his first term?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and Happy New Year to everyone. I anticipate that Donald Trump will try to come to office and achieve some of the policy goals that he did not achieve in his first term. Trump, seems to have much more support, winning the majority of winning the most in the popular vote contest, and having control over Congress. But he also has some issues to deal with. There's a lot of division within his party that's come out over the last few weeks, particularly over immigration. So he's going to have to be a leader and deal with that. And then he's also going to have to deal with opposition from the Democrats, particularly folks like Gavin Newsom here, who are talking about using the courts as a way to push back against the Trump agenda. So Trump has sort of communicated that his goal is to kind of hit the ground running. He wants to get the appointments out of the way. He wants to use more executive orders earlier than he did during his first term. But like I said, there's a lot of division within the party. There's a lot of opposition from the Democrats that he's going to have to account for if he hopes to achieve that.
You know, he comes into office obviously believing that he has a mandate. He won both the popular vote. He also got the Electoral College. He did not get both of those the last time through. And so he's going to obviously try and deliver on as many of his campaign promises as he can. He promised a lot of things, from lowering groceries, cracking down on immigration. What is your anticipation about how effective he'll be at achieving many of those objectives?
Well, Donald Trump is a difficult person to kind of analyze in this position because, yes, we saw him in his first term, but in his first term, he really failed to get a lot of his policy goals accomplished, and he showed a lot of naivete. For example, he really wanted to push for funding for the border wall, which was very important to him. And he let Republicans in Congress, particularly Senator Mitch McConnell, convince him that, oh, we'll get it next year. You may not get it this year, but we'll get it in the next budget fight. But most political analysts know that first year of a presidency, that's usually the opportunity you have to get the most done. And Trump let that opportunity slip through his hands. So I think he's trying to do everything he can in terms of appointments and executive orders to get the momentum and to take action sooner rather than later, learning the lessons from last time. But it remains to be seen whether or not he spent the last 4 years really preparing for this moment, or if it's going to be more of the same.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, he was a political neophyte last time, and so I think he struggled to figure out where the levers of power were. He shouldn't be sort of hamstrung by that problem on Trump 2.0, right?
One would think all presidents tend to mature at some level and get more comfortable in the office as they go through, particularly in their second term. So I would imagine Trump is much more prepared, and it looks like it from the way he's been handling things like appointments and policies beforehand. But something he's dealing with, which a lot of presidents have to deal with, are putting a coalition together of competing ideas, right? There are some in his coalition that think any immigration is bad and it's the job of the president to prevent immigration and get rid of undocumented immigrants who are here now. But there are others in his party, particularly Elon Musk, who's a major donor, who's advocating for some immigration, particularly these visas to allow people to come into the United States to work. So Trump's going to have to figure out how to square that circle, how to get those folks together behind an agenda before it collapses and divides early on in his presidency.
You touched on something I want to kind of jump onto, which is the influence, and some might even argue the outsized influence, that Elon Musk seemed to have during the campaign and now in this sort of interim period. What do you think his fingerprints will be once Trump is officially in office?
I think Elon Musk has shown us time and time again that he's someone who really does put his interests first, and he's willing to use his money to further those interests. So let's not forget, it was just, a handful of years ago, folks were mocking Elon Musk for spending this money on buying Twitter and then watching, the value of Twitter dissipate. But Elon, he knew that was an investment. He used Twitter to leverage his brand, leverage some of his policies, leverage support for Donald Trump. And now the joke is on the critics of Elon Musk, right? He's very close to the levers of power. He's paid to get access to that. And so I imagine he's going to want Donald Trump to deliver on that promise or agreement that the two of them had when he was giving this money.
All right, so we got about a minute left. So 2 questions, rapid fire, if we could. What do we think? Biden is the only person to have beaten Trump so far, head to head, and he's also leaving office after 1 term. How will he be remembered?
I think the story of Joe Biden will probably be somewhat tragic. Someone who entered national politics as one of these, so-called Watergate babies who was going to clean up Washington. But during his presidency, he's remembered as someone who left clinging on to power too long, and there's a very negative impression of his presidency. So I think at this moment, it looks like there's going to be a bad taste in their mouth about Biden moving forward. But who knows, what things can always change.
Just one last quick question. We've got about 20 seconds left. Governor Newsom has promised to be in a opposition where appropriate. How effective is he over the next 4 years to sort of hold his ground?
I think he can be very effective. Newsom's someone who's also looking at the White House. And one of the things the Democrats have to do is build a message offer a vision and deliver a candidate. And I think Newsom thinks he is that person, and he's certainly going to use opposition to Trump as a way to elevate himself to the White House.
All right. Thank you, Professor Higdon. Thank you so much for joining us today. All right. We're going to move on now to the passing of Jimmy Carter. Soon the public is going to get a chance to pay their respects to the former president, with memorial services scheduled to begin this weekend in Georgia. Before then moving to Washington, D.C., Christian Benavides reports from Plains, Georgia.
Those who knew Jimmy Carter in his tiny hometown of Plains, Georgia, considered him a friend.
He ate what we ate, bacon and eggs, shrimp boils.
Neighbor Andy Walker often brought over homemade dishes for the Carters, who were a simple staple in their town of about 550 people. Grandson Jason Carter summed it up like this in an interview with CBS News.
He was the president for 4 years. He was the governor of Georgia for 4 years. And for the other 92 years of his life, he was just a citizen. And he considered that to be a high title.
For nearly half of his life, Carter was followed everywhere by a group of Secret Service agents at home.
We would jog down this road here.
And abroad.
You had kids in Africa that lived in villages, and they were probably 6 and 7 or 8 year old, and they would be hollering, "Jimmy Carter, Jimmy Carter, Jimmy."
The former president will lie in repose here at the Carter Center beginning Saturday for mourners to come pay their respects. But visitors have been stopping by to honor Carter's memory. That included Habitat for Humanity CEO Jonathan Reckford, who laid a signature blue hard hat for his highest profile volunteer.
He never disappointed me, all through the years, through his presidency and post-presidency.
Historian Tom Chafin says Carter can still serve his country, even in death.
He reminds us of just common decency and what the presidency once stood for.
Many hope that spirit will live on.
In 1 week on January 7th, Carter will be taken to Washington, D.C. to lie in state at the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, where the public is invited to pay their respects, while the military maintains a guard of honor. We'll be right back.
Thanks for watching. You can always get all the latest headlines and weather over on Pix Plus. And remember to like and click the button on the bottom left of your screen to subscribe for the biggest Bay Area news.